The guest for today's episode of Tell Us More needs no real introduction in the tri-state area, though I'm happy to do so anyway. Karsten Charles Sabathia, more commonly known as CC, played Major League Baseball and was a star pitcher in the league for 19 seasons, making it to the major leagues in 2001 at the age of 20 and retiring after the 2019 season. CC started his career playing for the Cleveland Indians, was traded to the Milwaukee Brewers during the 2008 season, and signed with the New York Yankees the following offseason, where he played for the rest of his career and won a World Series championship. During his career, CC amassed over 250 wins, over 3,000 strikeouts, was selected to 6 All-Star teams, won the AL Cy Young Award, won the Warren Spahn Award 3 times, and led all of Major League Baseball in wins twice. CC was known throughout his career for shouldering a large workload and pushing through injuries to continue playing, demonstrated by no other pitcher accumulating more innings in a season since he led the league in 2008 with 253 innings pitched. In 2008, CC co-founded the Pitch In Foundation with his wife Amber to provide school supplies and resources to inner-city children. The foundation has grown substantially over the years, providing approximately $4 million worth of school supplies to elementary school children and developing programs to support renovations for youth sports and after-school programs. Earlier this year, CC released an autobiography, which has already become a national bestseller, titled Till the End, in which he details his life growing up in Vallejo, California, his professional career, and candidly discusses his struggles with alcohol use, for which he ultimately sought treatment at Silver Hill Hospital. We hope you enjoy as CC discusses his story of recovery and how his experience here at Silver Hill helped in the first step of his journey. Hey there.
How you doing?
Just living the dream. How are you?
Good.
I appreciate you making the time today.
Oh, no
You're
problem.
a busy guy. So I'm Ryan Wade. I'm one of the docs over at TLP. I primary doc for Scavetta House now, which I know is where you spent some time. And so we can go ahead and get started with some of the questions and everything. But as our audience likely knows, you had a book that came out recently, Till the End, right? And in part of that book, you discuss your journey into recovery and difficulties with alcohol. And as you know, within the recovery community, it's pretty common for people to share their story. And of course, we still want people to go out and get the books. You don't have to give us all the detail, but if you don't mind, just give us a brief synopsis, kind of what happened leading up to it. What was your experience here at Silver Hill? Just so our audience has a good idea.
Yeah. I started drinking when I was probably about 14 years old, and kind of set me on a course, in 2015 where I ended up at Silver Hill. Bunch of things happened in between that, that 21 years. I had a bunch of family deaths, dealt with a lot of traumatic experiences, trying to navigate a big league career being so young. I got to the big leagues at 20 years old and, trying to navigate all of that stuff, the pressures of being from the inner city, the one kid that makes it, and then, having the whole, city basically looking at you to fund everything, just these type of different scenarios that I was put in where alcohol was easy escape. And, it got to a point where, I wasn't able to control it anymore. And, went and sought help. 2012 is when I really knew I needed, to probably go to rehab and, take some time off, but didn't know how that would fit into my schedule until, I think it was October of 2015, where I was just, out of options. I was exhausted and, checked myself into Silver Hill.
Yeah. And so I think what you're describing there, I think is something that we see with a lot of young folks and athletes as well, where you have a lot that's going on in life and you're trying to manage it with alcohol as some coping, but also just, kind of trying to manage the alcohol itself when you realize that becomes somewhat of an issue. And, for those that don't know, yeah, you're a professional athlete, you were a pitcher, but it was more than that. You were somebody that was just kind of persevering through everything all the time. I'm a big Yankee fan myself, watched a lot of baseball and what you did in 2008 when you went over to the Brewers and everything, that was incredible.
Oh, thank you.
I don't. Has anybody pitched 250 innings in a season since? I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
You were the point being, you're somebody that just kind of pushes through and manages all this stuff. Yet it got to a point where you had the realization that the alcohol had gotten to be too much, and so I think this kind of scenario does happen for a lot of people that are like athletes or high achieving people. Have you come across anybody since you've had this experience and you've been very open about it? Have people come to you and asked about that sort of thing? Like, what's it like going to rehab? Have you been able to help others in that scenario?
Yeah, I have, and there's been a lot of athletes, like you said, a lot of successful, high level people, in the financial world, different things that have, approached me and asked me about rehab. And when I went to rehab, I didn't necessarily go for that reason. But before I checked in, one of my best friends literally just got off the phone with him 5 minutes ago. Chris Young was like, if you go through this process and you come out on the other side, you're going to come out and people are going to look at you like a hero. People are going to really, look for you for guidance. And when I was going into Silver Hill, I was like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. Like, I'm just trying to get through, managing my life. And, being able to come out on the other side of it the last 6 years and, just the amount of people that have reached out and just was like, what was it like? Is it worth it? How do you feel now? And my response is always the same. It was the greatest decision I ever made in my life. And it was the best 30 days I've had as an adult. And I wish I could do it every year. I wish I could get a month every year where I could shut off my phone, work on myself, and you know what I'm saying? And do the things that I need to do to make sure that my mental health is right. We never get that time because our lives are so busy and, you got so much stuff going on. But I was forced to take that time, to deal with my alcoholism and deal with my depression and anxiety and all those different things. And it's been the best, 6 years of my life after that. So the hardest thing about going to rehab or getting help is actually speaking up and saying that you need help and, seeking help and, being dependent on somebody else to help you figure this out. But once you do that, there's so many different resources out there, so many different places and doctors and different things that can help you get your life on the right track.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better myself. There's a lot to unpack there. I'd start by saying you're welcome back to Silver Hill if you want to come hang out.
Yeah, I mean, if I can find a month, man, I would definitely love to come back.
I mean, I spend a lot of time with the folks at Scavetta House. I'd love to chat it up. But some of the stuff you touched on, it's huge. The toughest part that we see is getting people to come to us to speak up. As working within mental health, we see repeatedly, people do get better, people come for help and, they get help. What can we, like within the medical professional community, is there anything that you see that we can be doing to really further that mission? I think you're doing a great job just by like advocating for yourself. And even you had that podcast with Drew Robinson, that was incredible. Yeah, I mean, you just really trying to, that was something. I shouldn't have listened to it while I was driving. It makes you tear.
Oh man. Yeah, I haven't listened to it since. Like just in that moment, it was so special and incredible. But yeah, I mean, I can't listen to that, without crying, man.
It was powerful. It was powerful. Yeah. So I appreciate you doing this and kind of advocating for our community here. Is there anything you feel like we can be doing as professionals that would help kind of spread that word or help reduce the stigma in a way?
There's really nothing that the mental, I mean, that you guys can do. You guys are doing everything that you can do. It's just people have to come to you. And I think, more people like myself, more people like Kevin Love, Simone Biles, these people speaking up and making it normal for you to deal with your mental health at a high level. We just watched Simone Biles in the middle of one of the biggest competitions in the world just say, hey, I need to take a break. And that's commendable, and I think people should understand that and know that, this is more important than anything else. If your mind is not right, your mental health is not right, the rest of your life is not going to be on track. So it's just about speaking up. And if you feel like something's off, you feel like you have a problem, you probably have a problem. The very first time I drank, that very first night, I was in the 8th grade, I was 14 years old, and I knew I had a problem. I knew that it was going to be a problem for me. I knew that that felt too good. I didn't get in trouble, nothing happened. and I could escape for like 6 hours, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this any chance I get. And I knew it was gonna be a problem. So people understand themselves. They know themselves, and you just gotta be a better self-evaluator and take care of yourself and get the help that you need.
Yeah, yeah, and that's excellent. I we really appreciate people such as yourself with like the stature and the popularity that kind of voice these sorts of things. I mean, it's doing a lot as far as our community and being able to reach out and help folks, because you're right. I mean, at some level, we can only do so much unless they're coming to us.
Yeah.
And you touched upon like coming to Silver Hill here, and it had been a great experience, the 30 days without your phone, all that sort of thing. You also mentioned in the book, you'd gone stretches without consuming alcohol before, so it wasn't just 30 days removed from alcohol that seemed to be helpful. Would you mind touching on some stuff that happened while you're here that you feel like has really helped you navigate the mental health journey, the issues with alcohol, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there were a few things there. I mean, obviously unpacking the reason why I drank so much, trying to figure out my triggers, around the house. I think, going to rehab and having that chance to understand yourself helps you understand like your daily triggers. You know what I'm saying? It helps you understand how to have conversations with certain people or different people that won't trigger you to make you upset, to make you want to go out and drink that night. So like it just gave me a bunch of different tools to help navigate my life in a lot of different situations. And I think for me, it helped me understand where I wasn't as bad. Like I hadn't gotten the DUI yet. I wasn't there court ordered. I was still in a pretty good spot. My family was intact. You know what I mean? I could still make this right. I was in rehab and I tell this story, with a couple of different guys. It was one guy that was really younger than me, and I could tell that he wasn't ready to stop partying and drinking, and it was going to be difficult for him, and I was like, see, I'm not there. Like, I know I don't want to keep partying. I know I don't want to keep drinking. Like, I know I know that like I'm past that stage. And there was an older guy that was there that was super wealthy, super successful, had 5 kids, had this great successful life, but his kids would have wanted nothing to do with him. He couldn't get a hold of them. Every day we were there, he tried to call his kids and tried to mend this relationship and all these different things. And I was like, see, I don't want to be that. Like, I still have this, I'm in this sweet spot where I have this opportunity to get my shit right. Like, where my kids are young enough where I haven't ruined those relationships yet. I'm old enough where I've gotten all the partying and everything out. Like, let me just figure out how I can live my life in the best way possible and be as happy as possible with my family. Like, everything's good. Nothing's happened. Like, I haven't lost my wife. Everything is still intact. Like, just get your shit together and you'll be able to live a good life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the modern day Goldilocks story there. Not too old, not too young. You're just
right. I was just right
spot.
In the middle. Like, I was right in the sweet spot. And I felt that while I was sitting in Scavetta. I was like, I'm in a good spot where I'm in a spot where I think I can beat this, and there's nothing really going to hold me back, where, I can't get a hold of my kids, so that's going to be a trigger and it's going to cause me to drink. Well, I feel like I'm missing this party out in Vegas and I need to get to this pool party and go crazy. And I'm not in any of those scenarios. Like, I'm in my own little sweet spot where I can live this out and it can play out, the way I want it to.
Yeah. And you were able to, achieve abstinence, and I commend you on continuing that for now. Do you feel like how do you feel like it's changed your life?
I feel like it's changed it for the better. I mean, I feel like I'm just in a better mood all the time. Like, I feel like I know what I've done the night before. Like, just this past weekend, I was out in California, in San Diego for the weekend. I had the greatest time. I was out at galas, doing different things, and never needed alcohol to feel like I was a part of. People were drinking, people were doing everything, and it's just not a part of my life anymore, and I'm comfortable with it. Like, some people can drink, some people can have alcohol in their life, and some people can, some people can throw a baseball, some people can play in the big leagues. Like, there's certain things that are a part of your life that, just aren't for certain people, and alcohol is just one of those things for me.
Yeah, and that's you also touched on this idea of being somewhat hesitant and going to rehab. And a lot of it was likely the structure of everything that was around, but there's also this idea that you could kind of gain control of it at times, right? You could pull it together and you talk about it pretty distinctly in the book. Like you'd pitch, you'd go on a bender, and then you'd sober up and be able to pitch again. It was like it wasn't impacting you. Do you find that since you've gone through that stretch where you came here and you got treatment, what do you think your biggest misconception about rehab is, or what do you still hear from folks when they're hesitant to go? Is there something that you encountered that was like, oh, this was not at all what I thought it would be?
No, to be honest, I had no idea going in what it was going to be like. So I really had no expectations. To be honest, the hesitation for people to go to rehab is just the stigma of being away, of being, how can I explain I'm gonna be gone for 30 days, without being honest. And for me, and that's why I went when I went, because I didn't want to be hiding. So the part of my journey of getting sober was making it public and making it that so people know that if I'm in a bar, people be like, hey, didn't you just go to rehab? Or like, hey, like if they see me on the plane having a drink, I wanted to be held accountable. I feel like some people, they want to live a sober life, but they don't want to really be held accountable if somebody sees them out drinking, or if somebody knows they went to rehab and it's like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like some people don't want people in their business that much, where I didn't care. Like I needed it to be public, and I needed it for mine to be out there so that I could be held accountable, because I know myself and I know, I could easily go back to drinking. I could have easily went to rehab after the playoffs in the off season and did it for a month in the off season, but I wanted to do it in the way that I did it just so I could be held accountable. And I think that's a lot of people's problem is they talk the talk, but they don't want to be held accountable when they do, maybe fall off or something.
Yeah. And I think that's actually demonstrated really well in your book, in that you go into some painstaking detail about some of these episodes that while you were drinking that were disruptive to your life. They were particularly problematic, and in the same stretch, you're not like glorifying it. They don't sound like the war stories, or like that you're bragging about any of these sorts of things. It's you state a lot of the facts. You're holding yourself accountable as to how difficult or how out of control things were at times, and how dangerous some situations were, or disruptive to your life, and putting that into print and just like revealing that to the world, and then not shying away from any of this and going into treatment. It really shows that you are holding yourself accountable, and I think that's it's likely part of the reason that it's been so successful for you, and you've been able to stay away from it.
Yeah, I think so. But I think, like, for me, those details, they weren't a big deal at the time. Like when I was whatever, me being drunk and waking up, a bed full of piss on our wedding night. Like that wasn't a big deal to me. Like it is what it is. Like me going to a Raider game and coming in and like ruining all our Christmas tree, like gifts and all of that shit wasn't a big deal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like didn't give a fuck. It never was like a problem for me. So now that I'm like sitting back here removed from it and like 20 years later, I'm like, holy crap. Like I was on a bad course and I was in a bad way, but like, it wasn't a big deal at the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy for me to reveal those details, because I think some people live that life and just like, this happens all the time, because so many people drink and so many people tell those war stories, and so many people like, I was so messed up last night and threw up and blah, blah, blah. That shit is not normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not normal to be doing that and not remember what you did last night or ruin a whole holiday. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was doing shit that I thought was normal just because everybody else that, you hear the stories and that's, well, he did that and they did that. But that shit is not normal. And normal people don't really live their life like that. And it took me a long time to understand that.
Yeah, and I must say, like, I think you tread that line really well within the book, and being able to tell those stories and give that information without it sounding like the war stories or like bragging in a way of I was able to do all this stuff and I was still walking, talking, and that sort of thing. So I think it really shows like the mindset you have now towards it all.
Yeah, the only reason I did all of that stuff and was still able to pitch is because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Like, I thought that was the big leagues. I thought that's how you live. You know what I'm saying? I thought that's how professional athletes did it. So, I mean, it was hard. Yeah. I mean, I probably, you know, looking back on it, like, it was very difficult, you know what I'm saying? And some of the stuff I was doing and drinking and trying to detox and all that stuff. But I just thought that was like the normal life.
Yeah. And so with this kind of perspective now that you have, like, is there any advice you'd give to new people coming up in the league, or you know, young folks that, you know, you see that you might think have some issues with alcohol or anything else? What kind of advice would you give to someone, like, if you were starting like you were at 20 years old, you know, over with the Indians and everything, if they're coming up, what would you tell them from what you now know?
Now, I would definitely tell them to definitely get somebody that you can talk to, a mental skills conditioning coach that you can really get close to, somebody that you can run things off of and talk to all night. You know what I'm saying? You need to have a sounding board, for sure, when you're that young in the big leagues, and just take it one day at a time. You know, it's hard. It's difficult navigating that world, especially the one that I was in. But it's literally one day at a time, and making sure that you're doing the right thing on that day, and you just wake up and do it again.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and I think it's, as you say, I think a lot of times there is that kind of culture where this is just, you know, how we think things go. And a lot of times it's not until people are shown that there's an alternate way, or, you know, someone such as yourself kind of taking someone under their wing, like when you're later in your career, and that sort of approach. You know, so I think it's incredibly valuable, like the experience you've had and just how approachable you are, and, you know, the whole, you know, you were keeping the peace in the clubhouse and everything, and keeping people, everybody was in good spirits, that sort of thing. You know, I think that's invaluable as far as, you know, what we look for in the mental health community, as to those like that can really help spread the word. So I really admire what you're doing. You know, do you find that there's anything in particular from, you know, your time here at Silver Hill that you're still doing today, like something that's really stuck with you, that has helped you to sustain what's going on, or helped you through some tough times?
Man, I honestly think it all. You know, like, I mean, like I said, I think understanding, like, being able to go there and understanding the triggers that, you know, daily, that would, you know, cause me to be upset, or, you know, cause me to want to go drink. You know, I feel like I understand them pretty good, and can navigate conversations pretty good that I won't get triggered. So, and to me, it always stays in the front of my mind. Like, rehab and Silver Hill and Scavetta House and everything always stays right in the front of my mind. Like, I never forget how I felt on that day when I was driving to rehab, or, you know, on that day in Baltimore. Like, I can never, ever, ever bring myself to forget that feeling and how low I was and where I was at, because that, you know, that's a real thing. As soon as you forget that, as soon as that's out of your mind, it's easy to slip back up and go back to a bar, or say, hey, I could have a glass of wine, or, you know, hey, this could be a part of my life. And, you know, I know for me that it's not. So being able to do these type of things, and, you know, hopefully one day being able to come back to Scavetta House and talk, and, you know, and just always reliving, you know, my situation and telling my story. You know, it feels like I'm always in rehab, and it feels like it's always in the front of my mind, because, you know, it's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, and, you know, along those lines, I know you're a busy guy. It might be a while till you get back here. But you know, any advice for those that are in Scavetta House right now? You know, we'll show them this interview and everything. We want to make sure that you know, they're getting advice from the best.
Yeah, you know what was crazy is that when we would sit in those meetings, and I'm so competitive, and they would tell us the numbers about, you know, this many people are gonna, you know, are gonna survive rehab, not survive, or are gonna stay sober. And I would just be competitive. I'd be like, well, I'm gonna be on this half of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna make sure I'm this number. I'm gonna make sure I want to come back and speak to these guys. Like, we would be sitting in those meetings, and I would be visualizing myself talking to the group, you know, and visualizing myself on the other end of you know, what sober life can look like, and how happy you could be. I would really, like, visualize and think about that, and at nighttime after all those meetings we would have in the house, and, you know, people come back that stayed in Scavetta. That was the best part to me, is having people that stayed in the house come back and rewalk the house and relive that, and just seeing people's reaction to being back in that house was huge for me. And I would be like, that's gonna be me, you know, and like I'm gonna come back and talk to the guys. So I mean, I would always just make sure that you know that you're in the moment, you're living it, and that you're trying to get the best work as possible.
Excellent. Yeah, and we'd love to have you back to talk with folks. They do get a big kick out of, you know, whenever they're volunteers or certain guests and that sort of thing. And, you know, I meet with a lot of them individually, and they'll tell me about, you know, such and such volunteer or, you know, guest speaker that came in. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I would have gone. Like, somebody should have told me, you know, so if you want, let me know if you're coming back. You know, one of the things, so I know you're kind of an avid golfer now.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for a lot of folks, like that's an activity that includes alcohol. And a lot of times what we hear from folks are, you know, they're worried about being able to do the things they used to do, or the things that they really like to do, because they're associated with alcohol, or they would always drink, or, you know, this group I golf with, usually they're always drinking. Like, how am I going to go back to do that? I'm sure you've encountered situations like that. Like you just mentioned going to San Diego, not drinking. How tough is that for you? Or, you know, what do you do to get through that? And some advice for the folks.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that now that you said that, I haven't even thought about that. Like, as much as people golf on the golf course.
Sorry.
No, it's crazy. Like, no, it's weird. It's just not a part of my life. Like, I went golfing the other day. We're at Torrey Pines, and I'm just thinking now, like, I just don't even think about it though. Like, the guy that I was golfing with, he kept ordering transfusions, but like, I never even, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even something that I even get urged to do now. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe because I'm working out and like my body feels so much better. Like, I can't afford to like wake up feeling shitty one morning, like from hungover. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's gonna set me back so far, especially like with my heart stuff going on, everything that I had going on with my health. Alcohol just can't be a part of my life. And I feel like, you know, when I went into rehab, I didn't know if I could pitch without alcohol. When I came out of rehab, I was like, there's no way I could pitch with alcohol. Like, being 36 years old, middle of the summer, body breaking down, like alcohol, I would have been done if I wouldn't have went to rehab 2015. The summer of 2016 would have been my last season, and I never get to 250 wins, never get to 3,000 strikeouts. None of this stuff in my afterlife of baseball is happening because my body breaks down from alcohol. So it's just something that. It's just kind of, for me, it's just poison now. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm kind of living this life over here where I don't even think about alcohol or even need it. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Alcohol is so much a part of everything. It's a part of every celebration and, you know, every sad moment. But it's like I mean, like I say, it's just not a part of my life. But yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, golf course is one of those places where people drink, but it's just not for me. And I hadn't even thought about that until you said it, which is crazy.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I think that says a lot in terms of like how the mindset can shift. And, you know, so for folks that are thinking that, you know, I'd never be able to do that without alcohol. I mean, I think it's pretty evident you had alcohol in a lot of parts of your life until, you know, going through treatment and everything. And now it's not even a thought.
Yeah, and even coming out of Silver Hill, I remember it was a big deal because we were going to a wedding. Me and my wife were going to a wedding about 2 weeks after I left Silver Hill, and I was all worried about it. Like, how am I going to a wedding? Like, I've never been to a reception without drinking and all this different stuff. And we went. I remember I was like, man, I don't want to go. It's one of my best friends, and we went down to Key West, and we went to the wedding, and I had the best time ever. And it was just me. It was my personality. It wasn't the drunk CC. I wasn't trying to make up conversations and sound all intelligent and shit. It was literally just me having fun, having conversations with my friends. We danced all night, and I woke up the next morning and remembered everything. I was like, this is the greatest night ever. So I think after that wedding, it kind of shifted for me where it was like, oh, I don't need alcohol to have a good time. Like, I am a good time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to know that, like, the people that you are around and you and your spirit is good enough to be there in that moment.
Yeah. And that's incredible to hear. And especially so soon after coming out of here, you know, it can really be a transformative experience. And yeah, I can say for certain, I think you're a good time. I've had a good time here chatting with you. It's one of the things I appreciate most, and that I listen to the podcast, and you're just a really genuine guy, and I think that goes a long way in your ability to kind of connect people and really get the message out about mental health and addiction and that sort of thing. And I know we're running short on time here, so just one quick question for you, because I know you mentioned the book, how much you really liked hitting, and you were hoping you're going to a National League team and everything. Do you think if you went to a National League team, you'd be doing what Ohtani's doing? Do you think
No, absolutely not. No.
Like
Ohtani's
80%? 80%?
Like 40%.
Okay.
Nah, this guy, he's something special, man. Nothing like I don't think we've ever seen before, ever. So
certainly,
we just got to enjoy it,
Yeah, no, I know he's one of your favorites, but yeah, I mean, you had a couple homers that year when you went.
Yeah, I did. I hit 2 that year.
It's got to be more satisfying than all those strikeouts after a while.
For sure.
All right. Well, CC, I'd really like to thank you for your time and for doing this for us here at Silver Hill. It really helps us with our our mission, our message, and keep fighting the good fight. You're doing a lot. And we really appreciate it, and I'm glad to hear you've been able to maintain your sobriety, and it sounds like it's been life-changing.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody up there at Silver Hill, Dr. Collins, to everybody. It was an amazing experience. But I got to say, shout out to the cooks. The food was the best part about Silver Hill. I came out of Silver Hill. I was 40 pounds overweight, man. I ate everything up there.
I tell people when they're coming in, like when they're getting admitted, it's like it's the best hospital food I've ever had.
It really is. I'm telling you, it's so good. You can't even call it hospital food. It's so good, man.
Really, they'll be pleased to hear that. The kitchen staff is great around here. So.
All right.
Thanks so much, CC.
No
we should do this again soon. Come by.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, I can come by soon.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Yeah.